There's no conclusive proof Bigfoot exists. When some new evidence pops up, you can bet we're gonna check it out.
From being chased by 3 strange humanoids in the woods to being taunted and hunted like prey, the Expedition Bigfoot crew made a big mistake when they followed the creature. Let's dive in. Bigfoot's home. During one of their expeditions, Bryce and Maria from Expedition Bigfoot came across something they could not explain in the woods. As they searched the woods for clues, they saw a massive tree structure unlike anything they had ever seen. Though they had found similar structures before, like one in Alaska, this one was far bigger and harder to explain. They couldn't figure out how it was made or who might have created it. To Bryce, this was amazing, while to Maria, this was quite odd. They both saw the way the trees were set up, looking like they formed a shelter. But the shelter-like structure was huge, about 15 feet high, almost like a Bigfoot house. And there was more. The top of the structure stood out. The trees were carefully and intentionally woven together by someone or something with intelligence. It felt like more than just nature at work. In their expertise, they knew that this could not have been done by a human being since the structure was deep in the woods and no logging activity was present in the area. After a deeper examination of the tree structure, Bryce came up with the theory that no ordinary animal could have done this. On top of that, to Bryce, this tree structure could not have been built by just anyone or anything. It looked like a group effort. There were about a dozen logs, each weighing 150 to 200 pounds, arranged with intricate designs. He thought the structure was odd and believed it would have taken several men to build it. The purpose? A complete mystery. So, what or who really built these structures and for what? Having seen similar structures in their previous expeditions in different parts of the world, they were now joining the dots. At this point, Bryce was very optimistic about this finding, but Maria didn't seem to think that the structure was that significant.
To me, this is not evidence of anything, but what it did remind me of instantly, though, was that tree structure that we had found in Kentucky. And that's where we had gotten some of our most interesting DNA results.
Though their points of view were different, they both agreed that the structure was an excellent spot to search for DNA. They believed that if the structure was made and not natural, whoever or whatever created it must have left some evidence of their presence behind. As they searched for anything they could use for DNA tests, Bryce argued that if the structure was built by someone or something, then it must have had a purpose. Bryce believed the tree structure was a Bigfoot boundary marker, showing their nesting territory. He explained they were right in the center of it. Maria noticed his excitement, and while agreeing that the structure was fascinating based on his analysis, she cautioned against jumping to conclusions too quickly. That was just like Maria, always urging caution. A scientist takes a logical approach to gathering data and evidence of pseudoscience beliefs. Maria's role in the team was clear. She focused on analyzing pseudoscientific data and presenting it in a way that mainstream science could accept. She believed the team needed to speak the language of their critics. By doing this, she aimed to provide logical proof of Bigfoot's existence, bridging the gap between skepticism and belief. For this reason, Maria was always careful and hesitant when it came to calling something evidence of strange findings. She never saw the tree structure as proof of anything. Instead, it simply reminded her of a similar tree structure they had once found in Kentucky. For Maria, it was more of a memory than anything to be proven. And Kentucky was an interesting place since the crew had gotten some of their most interesting DNA results. Understanding where Maria was coming from, Bryce agreed, and they decided to look for more clues. Maria decided to search for possible samples beneath the structure while Bryce examined the outside for any clues that might help with their research.
To me, eliminates the idea that those first 2 structures were perhaps natural. This was put here for a purpose.
So what are you saying, that you think this is some sort of...
A boundary marking. This is nesting territory, and we are right smack in the middle of it.
The area surrounding the structure gave the team several potential samples to examine later, which filled them with hope for their investigation. They felt optimistic as the samples they found could potentially provide valuable insights. Their hopes were high, and the discovery of the samples seemed promising for the progress of their work. That is, if these samples turned out to belong to a creature they had not yet encountered. According to Maria, if the findings in an expedition are isolated and far apart, they do not end up being so significant. However, when they discovered multiple samples across different locations and investigations, It raised a big question. Were these pieces of evidence part of something much larger? As they searched the structures for more clues, Bryce came across some hair samples. He then called Maria to check them out. After obtaining the samples, Bryce expressed his interest in taking the hair to the lab for DNA examination. This structure was turning out to be quite a strange one. Not only was it weird-looking, but it also had multiple samples of hair all over and around it. Whether or not the samples belonged to Bigfoot or they belonged to a curious bear was something they could not tell by just looking at the hair samples. They needed to send these samples to the lab for a deeper analysis. For what it's worth, these findings increased their hunger for the truth, and so, to get more clues, they decided to go deeper into the forest and explore more areas like the riverbanks, a common place to find potential clues since all creatures must drink water. But nothing could prepare them for what they were about to experience that night: the invisible tent. Bryce had set up a base in the forest to observe everything around him. He thought that since Bigfoot would not reveal himself directly to them during the day, spying the area at night in stealth mode would enable them to capture clear footage of the creature. Inside the tent he had pitched, he arranged every piece of equipment a scientist could get his hands on, determined to gather as much information as possible. Aware he was in a dangerous, unexplored area, Bryce took every step to ensure he wasn't detected by any creature of the night. But how could he avoid being noticed in a tent? The tent he used was unlike any other. Its fabric was designed to block all EMF frequencies from the research equipment, turning it into a giant frequency cage.
We can observe these creatures undetected ourselves, with eyes in all directions.
So I've set up a suite of electronic surveillance equipment. All of this equipment is housed inside this tent, which basically serves as a giant cage.
With the EMF blocked, anything inside the tent became invisible to creatures sensitive to changes in frequency. He had an idea of what this simple setup would mean for their safety that night. But that's not all he had. Bryce had set up thermal cameras all around the tent to catch heat signatures at night, along with infrared cameras to see in the dark. These cameras were placed in different directions to cover as much ground as possible and detect any threats near the tent. While the cameras handled the visuals, Bryce had also set up parabolic microphones to pick up even the faintest sounds from anything that might be hiding in the woods nearby. If something approached his position, he would see it or hear it. At least that's what he thought. With all this tech and the invisibility cloak for a tent, he must have been feeling quite invincible. But he was not as undetectable as he thought. Bryce sat quietly, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was out there. As he waited, his parabolic microphone picked up strange sounds near his tent. Though he couldn't see anything, he felt sure something was hiding in the woods. He listened carefully, praying that whatever was making the noises would appear on his camera. As dangerous as it was for him to expose himself like that, he hoped to capture solid proof of Bigfoot. Judging by the nature of the sound he heard, Bryce knew that the creature making them had to be large in size. But the fact that he could not spot it on any of the cameras gave Bryce the creeps, since he felt like he was being watched by something he could not see. For this reason, he kept his eyes peeled, looking at the video feed from all the screens, hoping to catch the creature causing the noises. Bryce tried to calm himself, thinking it was just a bear or a deer messing with him. But deep down, his survival instincts wouldn't let him ignore the thought of something smarter, something dangerous hiding, watching from behind trees, waiting for the right moment. Bryce couldn't shake the feeling that an intelligent predator had its eye on him. And then it happened.
I saw something on this camera move across like that. Oh my God, look at this, look at this, right here.
As he observed the screens, one of them caught a fast flash of light. Something had run past one of the cameras. Before he could make sense of what he had seen, Bryce saw another light a bit further in the distance. At this point, he knew that his visual detection equipment was definitely working, but what he could not help but wonder was whether the strange, elusive creatures were hunting him or just surrounding his tent in curiosity. Before he could understand what was making the noise, he saw it. Hiding behind a tree a few meters away from the tent, his thermal camera spotted something moving. Bryce sat in the tent, listening carefully to the noises outside. The sounds grew closer, and when he checked the thermal camera, he noticed a head peeking through the trees as if whatever was watching knew that he was there. He tried to keep an eye on the equipment, but his focus was drawn to the movement on the screen. Suddenly, something swiped across the camera's view. At that moment, a chilling thought crept over him. There wasn't just one creature out there. He was being watched by more than one, and he was alone. Bryce stayed hidden, knowing the risk he was taking. If anything found him, he'd be in real trouble. Bigfoot was unpredictable, especially when someone got too close to its territory, and Bryce was right in the middle of it. The thought of this made him even more fearful. The tent, though cleverly hidden, was his only shield. Its strength wasn't in keeping predators out, it was in staying undetectable. If any creature, Bigfoot or otherwise, picked up his presence, there'd be no stopping an attack. But Bryce, being in fear, did not stop the creatures from making more sounds. Then, all of a sudden, one of his cameras caught something coming out of the trees. It was something big, and he decided to follow the heat signal to get a better visual. He quickly got out of the tent, and the darkness in the woods swallowed him. Although he had a flashlight, he still struggled to see.
I just got a really bad vibration, a feeling.
He could not spot the creature. It was as if the creature had disappeared as soon as it heard the commotion of him rushing out of his tent and running towards it. His heart was racing, and he was still pretty fearful, feeling like he was prey in the darkness. Seeing that he could not catch the creature by storming and running after it, he decided to try a new strategy. For this, he called for reinforcements, aka his crew members, Russell as bait. Instead of chasing the creature, which was proving to be really hard, they decided to let the creature come to them. But for this strategy to work, they needed bait. Russell, being a seasoned survivalist, decided to volunteer to become the bait. In his mind, he thought that if the creatures came for him, he would have a better chance of surviving than any other member of the crew. Or so he thought. As he surveyed the woods, Bryce and other crew members were tracking his every move with the camera. At first, everything was good. The surveillance footage looked good, and they could clearly see Russell. Seeing that they were not getting much action, Russell decided to walk further into the woods to see if the creatures would follow him. Then, from nowhere it appeared. From behind the trees up the hill, they saw a creature moving fast towards Russell. While Maria was also in that direction, the way the creature moved did not seem human at all. Seeing this, Bryce and the team quickly radioed Russell, who, upon receiving the message, asked for guidance from the team since it was hard for him to see anything in the dark woods. Their job was to use the footage to direct Russell away from the creature, far enough for him to at least capture an image of whatever was coming towards him. The creature was coming from the east side of Russell. It was about 50 yards away, and it was closing in fast.
I mean, it's a really weird shape. Those look to me like where feet would be standing. But I don't know, it's hard to make out.
I think we need to continue tracking whatever was here. Let's go.
As he followed the trail, Russell heard some noises. Something had definitely been there, and they had left signs around, not to mention a pretty strong stench. A typical scent they had experienced while on one of their expeditions in Alaska. With these signs, Russell knew that they were in the presence of Bigfoot. The closer he got to where Bryce had told him that the target was, the weirder and louder the noises got. But Russell was not about to lose his target by running away or hiding. He had already risked his life by becoming bait, and he wanted his sacrifice to pay off. Knowing that by now the creature ought to have been really close, Russell went in the direction of the weird noises. But as he got closer, he heard something break a branch about 100 yards from him. After asking how long he was away from the creature, Bryce informed him that if he stayed that course, he would be able to intercept the creature. Hearing this, Russell decided to move towards where the creature was thought to be. On the other side of the mountain, Maria was following a heat signal they had seen a bit earlier. Bryce did some surveillance for her, and he noticed not one but two different heat signatures of strange-looking humanoid creatures moving in her direction. The woods were dark, and it was raining heavily. This meant that whatever Bryce was looking at in his thermal camera was not a group of loggers. It was rare for loggers to cut down trees when it was raining, let alone at night. On top of that, the rain and the darkness made seeing really difficult for Maria, and she mostly relied on the visual feedback from Bryce. Being fearless, Mireya got closer to the zone she had been told about by Bryce to get more information. Although they were trying their best to get the information, the weather conditions made it very difficult for them to see anything.
I can't see even inches in front of me. Do you hear that? There's something walking towards us over there.
But there was definitely something close to Mireya. When Bryce asked Mireya if she noticed anything, she told him she couldn't see or hear much because of the weather. The fog made it hard to track anything, and things were only getting worse. The surveillance team was losing sight of the second signature moving between the trees. The fog made it harder for them to keep track. Despite this, they urged Mireya to keep walking in the same direction, saying she might still connect with the creature if she kept going. It was a bold decision for Mireya, knowing she had 2 targets and one had already disappeared. But what made it truly terrifying was that she was now heading straight toward the last spot where the creature had been seen. Would she face it alone? Mireya used her flashlight to scan the trees, hoping to catch any sign of movement in the direction she was heading, but everything seemed to be working against her. The steep terrain was extra smooth and dangerous, thanks to the rain that made every step harder. The downpour didn't just make the ground slippery. It swallowed out all other sounds, leaving Mireya unable to hear much of anything. It was like moving through the dark, completely blind. Despite searching tirelessly through the night, neither Mireya nor Russell saw a thing. Each time they got close to something, it vanished, slipping away like it was deliberately avoiding them. The question hung in the air. Why would it go to such lengths to stay hidden? The next day, the team shifted its focus. They searched for footprints and checked an area where Russell had seen what looked like tracks left by a Bigfoot family. While their search turned out to be a wild goose chase despite all their efforts, some witnesses have seen Bigfoot up close and even taken pictures of the elusive creature. Caught on camera. In 2007, Bigfoot enthusiasts went wild when Rick Jacobs captured 2 images of what people believed to be a young Bigfoot roaming the Albany National Forest in northwest Pennsylvania. Rick was using a Bushnell trail camera attached to a tree to track deer in the woods. However, when he looked at the footage, he noticed something unusual. At first, he could see bear cubs walking around the camera, and one seemed to be sniffing the deer bait and mineral block placed there by Rick. Then, shortly after, an unidentified animal could be seen walking past the camera. With only 2 images captured by the camera, many claimed that the unidentified creature was nothing more than a bear with skin disease. Others believed it was a primate, even though there were no known primates in the area. But if a photo wouldn't convince them, perhaps motion pictures will.
I think it's time to go.
In 2015, a mushroom hunter got the shock of his life while exploring a mushroom forest in northern Illinois. As he recorded the various mushroom species he encountered, he noticed that one of them had a bite out of it, as if something had just enjoyed a mushroom snack a few minutes before he got there. He chuckled and continued recording. As he focused his camera on one of the mushrooms that had water on it, something unexpected happened. He heard a loud scream from a creature not known in the area. The creature seemed to be in pain, judging by the nature of its scream. Hearing the screams and not knowing what could have been causing them, the mushroom hunter decided to do what anyone would do in such a situation: get out of there. Yet some are brave enough to look the creature in the eyes. Olympic National Park Bigfoot. One day, a man named Joseph was hiking in Olympic National Park with his girlfriend and their Rottweiler Tina. On their way back, they took a shortcut. Suddenly, Tina, who was usually brave, started whining and hiding behind them. This was unusual because Tina was always alert and protective. Then, they saw something shocking. About 50 feet away, a huge orange-haired creature crossed the trail. It looked like a mix between a human and a gorilla, with black skin, a wide mouth, small ears, and a sloping forehead. It was around 8 to 10 feet tall, with broad shoulders and muscular arms. In one hand, it held a bloody animal carcass. When Tina whimpered, the creature turned and stared at them for a few seconds before running into the woods. The couple was terrified and left the park as fast as they could. Joseph believes they saw a Sasquatch, something he'd only heard about in stories before. Yet there's more. This fascinating trail camera footage comes from West Central Alberta, Canada, and was highlighted on January 17, 2024. The camera was originally set up to study wolverines, but it ended up capturing something completely unexpected. The footage first shows a large buck peeking out from behind a tree before retreating, but something else was hiding on the other side. At first, it remained completely still, but once the deer left, the figure moved. It appeared massive, dark, and covered in fur. To estimate its size, consider that the average buck stands around 3 feet tall. Despite being on the lower ground, the creature's head was still much higher than the deer's, even while crouching. This suggests that if it stood fully upright, it could be anywhere from 7 to 8 feet tall. From being chased by 3 strange humanoids in the woods to being taunted and hunted like prey, this is how the Expedition Bigfoot crew made a big mistake when they followed the creature.